On the 23rd of March, 1857, Emile L'Angelier was found dead. So, what happened next, you might wonder? And the answer was one of Scotland's most sensational murder trials. My name is Stuart Noble. I'm a Blue Badge member of the Scottish Tourist Guides Association, and I am here to tell you about this trial, which is still well remembered today, over 170 years later. Firstly, who was Emile? Here is a picture of him. He was born in the Channel Islands, and he came to Glasgow to work as a seedsman. After his death, he was buried in the churchyard of the Ramshorn Church, which is in Ingram Street in Glasgow. And he was buried in the graveyard which surrounds the church in an unmarked grave. But 5 days after he was buried, his body was exhumed. And the exhumation of his body discovered that he had died of arsenic poisoning. Suspicions fell on a young lady, 20-year-old, 13 years younger than him, and her name was Madeleine Smith. Now, who was this young lady, Madeleine Smith? Her father, James Smith, was a successful Glasgow architect, and they had a home in one of the most prestigious parts of Glasgow called Blytheswood Square. And this was their actual house at the corner of Blytheswood Square.
During the 19th century, Glasgow had industrialised very rapidly, with the result that it became a dirty, smoky, unpleasant industrial city. And many of the wealthy inhabitants tried to escape down the water of the Firth of Clyde and built themselves holiday homes there. Madeleine's father was an example of this, and he built a substantial mansion beside the pretty village of Rue, which you can see behind me here.
Madeleine and her family could commute to Rue by paddle steamer, and from Rue Pier, it was just no more than 10 minutes walk up the hill to reach the house which her father had built. It was called Rue Allen, nowadays known as Invergare. And just in front of it, there is this little footpath which commemorates Madeleine and Emile. Now let me take you back a bit in this story. Emile was not regarded as coming out of the right social class to be marrying into the Smith family. And so the Smiths started to look for a more suitable match, and they found a young man called William Minnoch. And Madeleine became engaged to him early in 1857. Meantime, too, it seems as if Madeleine was beginning to change her mind about Emile. One can't be certain of this, but 20-year-old young ladies quite often do change their minds. So the result of all this was that Madeleine asked Emile to return to her the letters which she had written to him. And Madeleine destroyed the letters which Emile had sent to her. However, on the 30th of June, just 3 months after Emile had died, Madeleine's trial starts. And you can perhaps make out Madeleine sitting in the middle of the front row towards the left-hand side of this picture. The letters were a cause célèbre. They were absolutely sensational. They were very explicit, and the judge ruled that they were too scandalous to be read out in open court. So a lot of the debate that went on in the trial was based on these love letters. However, there were some other facts to bear in mind, and one, of course, was that Emile had died of arsenic poisoning. Now, Madeleine had definitely bought arsenic. The local chemist had recorded her coming in, and she had said that the reason she bought the arsenic was for the rats. And then, of course, in those days, young ladies often used arsenic as a beauty treatment. If you had a spot that you wanted to get rid of, a wee dab of arsenic could work wonders for it. If Madeleine had been getting cooler towards Emile, there was the possibility also suggested that Emile might have taken just a little arsenic himself in order to make himself just a little bit ill, so that Madeleine might once again feel sympathetic towards him. And the suggestion was made that he didn't quite know what a little was, that he had perhaps overdosed. So these were some of the main arguments in the trial of Madeleine Smith. This was a sensation in all the newspapers at the time. On the 9th of July came the verdict. Now, here in Scotland, there are three possible verdicts we have, not just guilty or not guilty, but in between we have the verdict of not proven. And this verdict still persists to this day. And not proven basically implies we think that you have done it, but we've not got enough evidence to be sure and to convict you. So go away and don't do it again. And not proven was the verdict that Madeleine Smith got. So she was free to leave the court. So what happened to Madeleine subsequently? On 4th July 1961, just 4 years after the trial, she married George Wardle, and they had 2 children. However, by 1889, the ardor of the marriage was cooling, and there was an amicable separation. In 1905, she travels to the US to live there in the United States, where her son was already living. And then around 1916, when she was 81 years old, she married for a second time a man called William Sheehy. He died in 1926. Madeleine lived on for another couple of years, and she is buried in Hastings-on-Hudson in New York State in the United States, and her grave just carries the name Lena Sheehy. It is said that Hollywood approached her to make a film of her life, but she steadfastly refused. In addition to that, many books and films have been written about her, but whether she was guilty or not, to this day, no one really knows. She took her secret to the grave.